big, huge thank you to those who have invited me for the great introduction. It's a great honor. I have great admiration for my friend. And so thank you very much. I know that it's a gorgeous evening and a Minnesota evening. So this is a heavenly evening, and yet you're here. And I'm very grateful. So thank you very much. I'll just start by telling just a little bit about myself. Not involved in politics at all until roughly 2012 when I purchased a house in Northeast Minneapolis. I'll just back up a little bit. I'm an indigenous Minnesotan, born and raised in Brainerd. And you know what, I could maybe even turn that on. My profession is I'm a critical care nurse. I've worked in the intensive care unit for decades. I hate to say how long, it makes me feel really old. So as I said, purchased a house in Northeast Minneapolis knowing that there was an an Islamic business center just 2 miles south of me. But at the time I believed the popular but false narrative that they were no different than our ancestors who migrated to America. And it was the catalyst of another mosque being proposed in my neighborhood that made me really take pause. There was a disquiet in my spirit that I just did not understand because I didn't understand this thing called Islam. So I sat down at my computer with a resolve that I wanted to know in my head and my heart, should I be concerned about a mosque in my neighborhood or not? And it was that research that has just simply been life-altering. It is not all about individual Muslims. This is about Islamic doctrine, black and white. It's about Islamic Sharia law. It is a direct threat to the U.S. Constitution, to our celestial freedoms endowed to us by our Creator, declared in the Declaration of Independence. It is a direct threat. And so, as a mother, as a woman, as a Christian, who cares deeply about the kind of world that I pass on to my children, I felt that I needed to do something. The name of Debbie means worker bee. And so I blame it all on my mother, of course. So I looked for an opportunity where I could begin to raise awareness, to educate those in my day-to-day world, because at that time in my day-to-day world, no one knew what I had been learning on the internet. And so I looked for an avenue, and it was Act for America. I started hosting monthly meetings started an Act for America chapter in Minneapolis and started hosting monthly meetings to begin this process of raising awareness and educating the folks. I tried reaching out to my neighbors, but they got angry at me and wanted to counsel me, and so I began to stretch my horizons and my networking regarding the subject matter. And I reached out to folks, for example, in St. Cloud. Most people don't know this, but the Islamic University of Minnesota, the Islamic University of St. Cloud, had proposed, it was a rezoning proposal, and if it had passed, it would have allowed the construction of a 39,000 square foot domed mosque with 50-foot minarets near the St. Cloud campus. That was only the beginning. Then they would have built a gymnasium, madrasa, an Islamic school, office and retail space, and townhomes. So it would have been a virtual Islamic community, an Islamic enclave city within the heart of this residential neighborhood, just not far from the St. Cloud University. So that's when I sent out an SOS to some of the networks that I had begun at that point, and I crossed paths with Michelle Bachman. I sent out an SOS to anyone, tell Michelle Bachman. This used to be her district in St. Cloud, of course. And so she did return my call, and she did assist. Act for America provided us a constitutional and land use attorney, pro bono, that kind of advised and coached from the sidelines, and then also with Michelle's intervention. So with out-of-state and in-state coordination, we were able to get the Islamic Center to withdraw their rezoning proposal. So that neighborhood was saved for the time. So that's how I met Michelle Bachman. And Michelle Bachman opened up the doors to the A-Team and national security. And my friend has mentioned some of those names. So what I began to do in addition to the monthly meetings was begin to feature, host special events, such as, and I think it's important to mention them, Michelle Bachman spoke for me on a number of occasions, a former advisor to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Stephen Coughlin, and retired CIA operative Claire Lopez. You'll see her a little bit later in the PowerPoint. Former FBI agent John Guandolo. He's the one that donated the DVDs this evening to you. He is the first one in 2006 who created a training for the FBI that addressed the Muslim Brotherhood in America. And then also, founding member of the Department of Homeland Security, Philip Haney, has been here. Author Robert Spencer, author of Jihad Watch. Are you familiar? Any of these names sound familiar to you at all? And physician and author, Dr. Andrew Boston, and that's when I first met one of our hosts this evening. And then also Austrian freedom fighter Elizabeth Savage Wolf. And you'll be seeing her a little bit later also in the PowerPoint. And then also author Ann Corcoran, investigative journalist James Simpson, executive vice president of the Center for Security Policy, Dr. Christopher Hall. And he was just here recently, and you were able to be there for that, and we had a nice turnout for that. And then also EM Primus, about the EMP threat. Dr. Frederick Faxvog also spoke. And then Sister Hetun Dogan, a Syrian Orthodox nun, Curtis Bauer, and then Chris Gobbets. So that's some of the work. So as we traveled, I would plow new ground. We've traveled throughout the upper Midwest. We've gone into the Dakotas. We've gone into Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska. We've had to, in essence, circumvent our captured government. That is my expression. But many of them are already ideologically captured and don't want to address this issue at all. So we've had to circumvent them. We've had to circumvent the hostile mainstream media. Right now, the media, mainstream media, promotes only a template that is sympathetic to Muslims and very hostile, branding those who dare to speak about the legitimate concerns that Americans have regarding the rise of Islam in our communities. And so with that, in 2012, there wasn't a single person in my day-to-day world that knew what we were doing, but now as a result of all the hard work of many people, not just Debbie Anderson, but many people from the East Coast who are willing to come and get paid extremely little. Mm-hmm. So this is really a matter of the heart about saving our children's futures, saving our I call them the celestial freedoms. And so many other citizens throughout, who have been willing to set up the venue and to take the time to allow us to come in and speak to the group. So now we do have activists throughout the upper Midwest now, and I praise God for that. That's a really good thing. So Bloomington, St. Cloud, and then also Bloomington was another issue where we took some active role and part in trying to save this community from a very bad mosque, probably the worst mosque in the upper Midwest, and I'll try to highlight that shortly, in the PowerPoint. So, and I think with that, let's just quick go over this. You have a handout here. It's called the Muslim Brotherhood in Minnesota. And the second page addresses Sharia law versus the Constitution. I'll be referring to that. This document, it was created by the Center for Security Policy, so it's an excellent resource to just show that there is as Dr. Sebastian Gorka said, that it is incompatible in its gene code, the U.S. Constitution and Islamic Sharia law. And this just kind of hits the tip of the iceberg on the really incompatible differences. And then the other page is the Council on American Islamic Relations. They come across as a civil rights organization, but it actually is a front for Hamas, which has been designated a terrorist organization by the U.S. government. So it is not benign. And I think that's my point this evening, hopefully, is that Islamic doctrine, not all Muslims, but Islamic doctrine is not benign. And I'm very grateful that you're here this evening to learn some of that this evening. Not that you don't, but I just don't know where all you are. So CARE is Hamas. And then also on the other page is, and I will be speaking about this, and it's about the alliance of the Marxist communists and the Islamists in Minnesota, and that they're on our college campuses. And this is just one example of one that I attended. And then unfortunately, it's not only the Democrats and some of the others who are working very closely with them, but many of our Republican legislators now are authoring bills that give millions, roughly $20 million to just Somalis, in addition to all of the government programs and grants that they're given. So there is information about that. And then also there's an important document here, and just so you know that when Islam speaks about justice, freedom, terrorism, or innocence, it's always defined according to Sharia law. Do not think that when they say those words, that it's our understanding or definition of those words. That there is as defined by Sharia law. So you have this document that just gives you kind of the top number terms. And then on the last page is what can I do? And this is just a collection of recommendations, suggestions by experts across the years that I've just pulled together in one document. And then my contact information is on the back there. And then I did include my bio, and this is not about Debbie Anderson, but I do want people to know that there has been a lot of collaborative, coordinating work, and it has been having an effect, as my friend said. And so I hope you take the time to check out the links and read the articles, because our research contributed to many of these articles. Okay, alrighty. Well, I'd just like to start with this. I grew up during a time when the woes and wars of the Middle East were over there on another planet, right? When Anderson was the norm. I think there were 15 pages of Andersons in Brainerd, Minnesota. If I recall correctly, there were a lot. And so these were in humble times. Very innocent times. But unfortunately, times have changed. The demographics have changed. Starting in 1992, the powers that be decided that it was a good idea to start importing Somalis from Somalia. And so since 2009, when the first close to 24 young lost men left Minnesota to wage jihad in the Middle East, Minnesota has been recognized as a jihadist pipeline. That's pretty staggering to me. So it's important that the average American really needs to get engaged in understanding, what this is really about. They are not just like our ancestors coming here to be released from oppression and to celebrate, embrace American republic government. So, and we'll start with the Muslim Brotherhood. This goes back, so this is just a brief introduction to the Muslim Brotherhood. After World War I, the existing Islamic Caliphate, called or recognized as the Ottoman Empire, was dissolved. And so this gentleman here, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, was the head of Turkey, and he did away with Islamic Sharia law, wearing of the hijab, and women only half the value. that type of thing. And he embraced Western values, Western law. But there were others in the country, other Muslims, who thought that that was apostate. It was bad, wrong, and so this gentleman, this Muslim here, Hassan al-Banna, is the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, created the Muslim Brotherhood to restore 7th century Muhammad practices and law. And this is a quote from him, that is the nature of Islam to dominate, not to be dominated, to impose its law on all nations and to extend its power to the entire planet. It is the only religion that has a religious obligation to conquer the world to the glory of their God, to the glory of Allah, and Muhammad, his messenger. This is their creed, their logo here. Obviously the green planet, the 2 swords, and the Quran at the top. And the creed is Allah is our goal, the messenger is our guide, the Quran is our law, jihad is our means, and martyrdom in the way of Allah is our inspiration. And then I didn't mention this, but this is Arabic for prepare. And this is taken from the Quran. It says, against them make ready your strength to the utmost of your power, including steeds of war, to strike terror into the hearts of the enemies, and others besides, whom ye may not know, but whom Allah doth know. Then I'm going to jump to in 2004. So the Muslim Brotherhood didn't stay in the Middle East. The Muslim Brotherhood has come to America. And in 2004, the FBI raided the home of a Muslim named Ismail al-Barasi in Annandale, Virginia, where they discovered the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. And many of these documents were entered into the largest terrorism financing trial ever successfully prosecuted in U.S. history, the United States versus the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development. And this is a snapshot of the Department of Justice back on 2009, May 27, 2009. The federal judge hands down sentences in the Holy Land Foundation case. And it just says, today in federal court in Dallas, U.S. District Judge Salas sentenced the Holy Land Foundation for Relief and Development, HLF, and 5 of its leaders following their conviction by a federal jury in November 2008 on charges of providing material support to Hamas, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Today's sentences mark the culmination of many years of painstaking investigative and prosecutorial work at the federal level, state and local levels. All those involved in this landmark case deserve our thanks, said David Chris, Assistant Attorney General for National Security. These sentences should serve as a strong warning to anyone who knowingly provides financial support to terrorists under the guise of humanitarian relief. So, what was determined from the HLF trial was that, number one, there is an Islamic movement in the United States that is led by the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the parent organization of Hamas, designated a terrorist organization by the U.S. government. The objective of the Muslim Brotherhood is to wage civilization jihad to destroy America from within. Many of the most prominent Islamic organizations in the United States were created by the Muslim Brotherhood to see their objectives. We will see this played out in the PowerPoint. And it starts with this document. And it's titled, it was entered, that's your one of your handouts there. And if you notice on the first page, it's in Arabic, yes, but it was also translated into English. So of course I just printed off the English portion, but it's important to note that it has the stamp, and we have a lawyer here, I know. It's like a stamp of authenticity that it was entered as evidence correct? Correct? Yep, okay. And so it is authentic. It was used in the largest terrorist funding trial ever held in the United States. So the title of it is An Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goal for the Group in North America. And it basically is their war plan, and we're just going to briefly go over it to learn about their war plan. So if you just open up to page 4 of 18, number 1, and I'll just read this because I think it's important. The general strategic goal for the group in America, which was approved by their Shura Council, a religious council that approves, and the organizational conference for the year 1987, is, quote, enablement of Islam in North America, meaning establishing an effective and a stable Islamic movement, capital I, capital M, meaning that they are calling it for what it is. An Islamic movement led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which adopts Muslims' causes domestically and globally. I'm not talking about American, all peoples, but just for Muslims. Muslim causes domestically and globally, and which works to expand the observant Muslim base, aims at unifying and directing Muslims' efforts, presents Islam as a civilization alternative, and supports the global Islamic State wherever it is. Number 2 says, the priority, and I'm going to roll a little quickly here, but the priority is settlement. And number 3, the positive development with the brothers in the Islamic circle, that's going to come up again, Islamic circle, in an attempt to reach a unity of merger. They're talking about allying all of the tribes, ideologies of Islam under the Islamic movement to create a global caliphate. Number 4, the constant need for thinking and future planning, an attempt to read it and working to shape the present to comply and suit the needs and challenges of the future. This has become a way of life. It is a way of life for many Muslims to follow this as it's articulated here. This is so important that they repeat these same tenets in the steps down below, but I won't repeat them. And then turn to page 5 of 18. Just the next page at the top, it says, it must be stressed that it has become clear and emphatically known that all is in agreement that we must settle and enable Islam and its movement in this part of the world. And then they go on to describe the concept of settlement, the process of settlement. And then turn to page 7 of 18, number 4. And it articulates, it states, understanding the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, Arabic for Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Without this level of understanding, we are not up to this challenge and have not prepared ourselves for jihad yet. It is a Muslim's destiny to perform jihad and work wherever he is and wherever he lands until the final hour comes, and there is no escape from that destiny except for those who choose to slack. And then at the top of the next page, 8 of 18, it just talks about the conviction that the success of the settlement of Islam and its movement in this country is a success to the global Islamic movement and a true support for the sought-after state, God willing. And in their mind, it is a global caliphate ruled by Sharia law. And the success of the movement in America in establishing an observant Islamic base with power and effectiveness will be the best support and aid to the global movement project. And then we'll skip to page 10 of 18. And down at the bottom, number 17, it states, understanding the role and the nature of work of the Islamic Center in every city with what achieves the goal of the process of settlement. The center we seek is the one which constitutes the axis of our movement, the perimeter of the circle of our work, our balance center, the base for our rise, and our Dar al-Arqam, which is like safe place, to educate us, prepare us, and supply our battalions, in addition to being the niche of our prayers. And on the next page, the center's role should be the same as the mosque's role during the time of God's prophet. And Muhammad, when he moved from the peaceful phase in Mecca to Medina, that's when he established the first Islamic center in Medina, and that's when he lifted the sword instead of trying to win hearts and souls like he did peacefully in Mecca. So the mosque has a lot of deep meaning in the Islamic world. And so then the rest of the document talks about their organizations. So as they come into an area, they plant a seed of settlement, they develop an Islamic center, and then they begin to develop a parallel society, which in national security speak they call a counter-state. And you'll begin to see that a little bit later. So on the last page of the document, then it lists their organizations and the organizations of our friends. Imagine if they all march a cart according to one plan. And the first one is the Islamic Society of North America. The second one is the Muslim Students Association. So keep in mind, everything that they've talked about before in this document, that is going to be the aim and mission of these groups that are in our communities. Muslim Students Association. So as I mentioned earlier, a friend and I were requested to map out all of the Islamic centers, societies, masjids, mosques, and prayer spaces in Minnesota. And so we broke it down and listed them according to the Muslim Students Association. They are on 21 Minnesota college campuses. So they're promoting the aims, the agenda of this document. Also, unfortunately, they're targeting the hearts and minds of our minors. There are Muslim Students Associations in 11 Minnesota high schools. I'm not aware of that happening. Of course, I haven't compared in other states, but that seems very staggering to me. And you have two in Anoka County. Blaine is one of Blaine High School, and then also Champlin. And then this just shows the logos of the Islamic Society of North America. It is in Minnesota, and in fact it's in Fridley. This Islamic Center of Minnesota, and I just use their logos just to keep it brief. I mean, we can go in and, we can break off and do studies on each of these subjects, but the Islamic Center of Minnesota is in Minnesota. The North American Islamic Trust, and that's on here, number 8. That is the banking system for Islam. And according to David Horowitz's Discover the Networks, NATE owns up to 50 to 80% of American mosques. So that means that they're implementing, again, the civilization jihadist process. And then on number 22 is the Islamic Association for Palestine, and that is the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. It's also known as Hamas. So, as we said earlier, that HLF trial was able to prove that that charity foundation was actually raising money and sending it to Hamas of Palestine, a terrorist organization. That's what they were found guilty of. And so it's not, as the mainstream media says, a civil rights organization. the Islamic Circle of North America, and that was mentioned earlier in the document also. It is in Minnesota. And then what is not mentioned on this document is that the Muslim American Society is very active in Minnesota. They have 5 or 6 mosques, I have forgotten. But Steve Emerson from the Investigative Project on Terrorism has an extensive dossier on the Muslim American Society. It is the Muslim Brotherhood. It was just formed after this document was created. And I just noticed the green crescent, it encircles the entire Western Hemisphere, not just America. Kind of blew me away when somebody said that to me. All right, and so now it's mapped out according to county. Blue is Hennepin County, and we will get to a slide here. I think there are 130 in Hennepin County. This is Ramsey County here. The yellow is Anoka County, and then this is Dakota County down here. And so that's just to give you a rough view. So what I like to be able to do is, should I have a chance to meet with a sheriff or a legislator, what I do then is I create a briefing that is specific to their county about the jihadi network that they have in their county. And I think, just want to move along here. Islamic Center Societies, masjids, prayers, mosques, prayer spaces. What it doesn't show here is that they have a parallel society. I mean, we just get overwhelmed. We don't have enough human resources to do this subject matter adequate coverage and research on this. But they have Islamic daycare centers, they have Islamic stores. I mean, anything that we have, they are essentially creating a parallel society, Islamic society, that is designed to consume its host country. And this is going on in Western Europe. Is anyone watching what's going on in Western Europe with the invasion there? Brussels is almost, I mean, I keep reading increasingly dire reports. Brussels now has a political party called Islam. They have every intention of taking over the political party. And back up to Muhammad, when he moved to Medina, that's exactly what he did. He not only lifted the sword, I mean, first he got involved with the politics, and then once he gained power, then he lifted the sword and conquered that and just swept through Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. So it's not a good thing for them to get into political power. Brussels, Belgium, France is in dire straits. 10 minutes. Whoa. I'm really behind. All right, moving along. Okay, Islamic centers according to the county. So Anoka, as I said, has 2 Muslim Students Association. And so I'm happy to share this with anybody. What is important, and in your paper, just know that Sharia law is the fault line. This is not picking on any individual human being. God loves the Muslims too. They just haven't been given the freedom to have freedom of thought, freedom of choice, freedom of speech. They haven't been even given those freedoms, and it is the Sharia law, it is their doctrine, and it is written in black and white. And I have an Islamic law book right here that anyone can purchase and read it yourself. So we don't have to rely on the imam. So it says in here that jihad is war against non-Muslims, period. They want us to believe anything else. So, and you have the document about Sharia law versus the Constitution. And then I just, 1990s, early 1990s, we started receiving a lot of, they were importing a lot of Somalis. These are Muslims. Why is this important? Why does it matter? Why does Somalia matter? And Somalia is an Islamic state ruled by Sharia law. Their constitution is posted online, and it doesn't tolerate any other religions. Plus, Somalis are devout Sunni Muslims who strive to emulate their Prophet Muhammad. So they're going to abide by the edicts of the Quran and Sharia law, not and they believe that it is superior to any other man-made law. They see it as a religious obligation to subvert the inferior, evil man-made laws so that the God-made, Allah-made, superior law is implemented and rules. So Somalia is also home to some Sunni groups such as Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. These are very violent groups that wage jihad in the cause. And so whether it's civilization jihad or kinetic terror, it's still a threat. So just kind of focusing down, what I like to do whenever I go out is bring big picture, what the global aims and agenda, and then bring it down to the local so that people can begin to see it in their own community. So of course, the Cedar Riverside neighborhood has the highest density of Somalis, and it's been called Little Mogadishu. And the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, we did research. There was an explosion here. It's also called the West Bank of the University of Minnesota. Sometimes you can't even make this stuff up. And but a lethal explosion, January 1st, 2014. We did a lot of research on this. The FBI denied any ties to terrorism almost immediately. This explosion did kill 3 people and severely burned another 13. So as I said, the FBI declared that there was no evidence of terrorist activity or links to terrorism. And here's Keith Ellison with the fire chief in front of him. I think they really kept him close to them so that the messaging was portrayed. So the day after the explosion, let's see, Gates of Vienna is a website, and we did research. So it was my friend and I who began to research, and there were many ties to terrorism and or to the funding of terrorism, and we just don't have a lot of time to go into this. I'm really sorry. We did brief Michelle Bachmann when she was still in Congress then, and we briefed her, and she involved Judicial Watch, who through their FOIAs and research were able to prove that the city never retrieved one single evidentiary artifact before they completely demolished it. So, yeah, so not good. And then the people who were tied to the owners of the buildings. One was the owner of the grocery store was owned by Muslim Brotherhood Mosque, and Dar el Hijra it's called. And then the apartment building was owned by a gentleman who was accused of funding the Taliban and and so, but they just demolished that site. The hole is still there to this day, and then interestingly enough, when Keith Downey was chair, he moved the GOP headquarters into the same neighborhood, and shortly thereafter, he enthusiastically endorsed Somali Abdulik Asghar for the Minnesota House of Representatives. It was only 2 years prior that Asghar had ran for the president of Somalia. And again, keep in mind that Somalia is an Islamic state. And and then this is why I just bring up, this is starting to address some of our captured politicians in Minnesota. That here's the MAS, the Muslim Day at the Capitol. This is their 14th year, and they're working with MAS. In the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, they have a Sharia cop that's enforcing Sharia law, and that's being tolerated. The mosquing of our neighborhoods, this is probably the most dangerous mosque in the upper Midwest, the Dar al-Farouk, and there's the imam right there. This is the traffic. This is only one of the many problems that this community has had. This is, we did research on this imam. Dr. Walid Idris Al-Manisi, he's vice president of the Islamic University of Minnesota, which claims to be the official representative of Al-Azhar University, Sunni Islam's most prestigious university. He's already had several hundreds graduate. So he's training imams in Bloomington and disseminating them. So it was also identified as a hotbed of terrorism by the Steve Emerson at the Investigative Project on Terrorism. He also serves on this is probably, along with Al-Azhar, but his ties to, he serves on the Permanent Fatwa Committee of the Assembly of Muslim Jurists, which seeks to implement Sharia law. And this is the article. And this is my friend Sally here, who has, for 6 years, has been documenting the conditional use permit breaches by the mosque. See, again, they have no regard for American city code or laws, and they are starting to target her. Government leaders, Governor Dayton, and I just put these in here because this is what the grassroots, has been up against. These people won't even meet with me. I tried to meet with Keith Ellison and met great hostility with his staffer. And this lady here has, we had an email exchange. She tried to shut down Brigitte Gabriel from speaking in Minnesota. And she closed our conversation by stating that she would wait for my grandchildren's apology. She's the co-founder, and former executive director of CARE Minnesota. These are really dangerous people. Plus, shortly afterward, she placed me on CARE's list of Islamophobic individuals, which is in essence a hit list for Islam, for speaking blasphemy against Islam. And then, of course, Ian Omar, and she is married to her brother along with her husband, which is highly suspect for immigration fraud, but Minnesota authorities refuse to investigate. And then here are some of our confused GOP leaders who are authoring bills to give millions of dollars away to Somalis specifically. Minnesota law enforcement. When I first met John Guandolo and learned that all of the military intelligence law enforcement training manuals had been purged of anything deemed offensive by Islam at the behest of the Muslim Brotherhood, this is back in 2008, I felt a burden to see that the people who have sworn an oath to protect and defend us physically, kinetically, from the threat. I, again, have met brick walls, and I was told by a senator that Hennepin County Rich Stanek is militantly opposed to training Minnesota law enforcement about the jihadi threat. And I'm just talking about, I don't quite understand that, but rather he has formed a very close partnership with Imam Robley and credits him for success in Hennepin County. They don't seem to really care less about the indigenous Minnesotans. And here's Andy Lugar. This is after a back-to-back bombings of Brussels in 2016 that killed at least 34 people. Ted Cruz said law enforcement should be empowered to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. But instead, Minnesota under Andy Lugar came out in full force to tell Muslims that they were here to protect. We're here to protect you from hate crimes and the backlash from fear, hatred, and anxiety. And this is just some more of the fallout of kind of the inversion of right and wrong with our law enforcement. This is a woman that was terrorized in the Lake Calhoun area. She was threatened with kidnapping and rape, and not a single arrest was made. And this was Muslims in as many, 20 to 30 Muslims in 6 cars that were terrorizing the neighborhood, holding black duffel bags and pretending that they were shooting at people. And then, of course, this poor lady called for help in her pajamas and came out and was shot and killed by Mohammed Noor. And then this lady was stabbed 14 times by a Somali. The police narrative said that it was attempted robbery. She denied that. So it's really a shame. Mm-hmm. Scary. So Muslim Brotherhood and Muslim schools, I attended this. This is Malcolm X. It was their justice and peace, and keep in mind this is as defined by Sharia law, not traditional American definitions of justice and peace. Surhaj Wahaj attended this. He's not only a national board member of CARE and vice president of ISNA, both Muslim Brotherhood organizations, but he is an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. This is at the Minneapolis Community Technical College. Surhaj Wahaj said, if only Muslims were clever politically, they could take over the United States and replace its constitutional government with a caliphate. If we were united and strong, we would elect our own emir and give allegiance to him. Take my word, if 8 million Muslims unite in America, the country will come to us. Shahaj Wahaj. This is another one. This was an alliance with all of the Black Panthers were here, along with Hamas and the American Indian Movement. I attended this. Minnesota churches. Only a coalition of Islamists and Marxists can destroy the United States. There's a quote that I took from Steve Coughlin, but it was Carlos the Jackal that said it. And I came across a document, this is just talking about the communists. So I came across a document written in 1952 by a man named Joseph Zach Kornfeder. He was a former member of the International Secretariat of the Communist Party, graduate of the Lenin School of Political Warfare. And so this is what a church had invited him. They felt that the church was being penetrated, infiltrated. And so he spoke to them, gave a presentation, and that's what this document is, and I'm happy to share. But the communists seek to infiltrate and indoctrinate. They love to dim the intellect. And many of you have probably heard of many of these things. The process of reinterpretation, the Bible, for example, or words are under a process of reinterpretation. Who's a real terrorist, for example? They attack morality, and haven't we seen this slide into depravity? Criticism, I was in a few college classes where criticism was the norm, and it all attacked American foundations, principles, and values. They seek to disintegrate the moral and spiritual fiber. The objective is to destroy basic ideologies and institutions, to demoralize them sufficiently so that Moscow can move in with little effort to take over. So those are the communists, but it's also the Islamists. So they're working very closely together. This is from the Quranic Concept of War, written by a Pakistani brigadier general named S.K. Malik, and he said, to instill terror into the hearts of the enemy, it is essential in the ultimate analysis to dislocate his faith. An invincible faith is immune to terror. A weak faith offers inroads to terror. So that's what they seek to do. And they are doing it through political means. They are saturating our churches. And so while the good churches are focusing solely on preaching the gospel, I cannot get into churches, by the way. We have groups like this. So the Muslim American Society, and I'm almost getting there, I'm going to go really fast. This truly horrified me. This just happened in February. They posted this on Facebook, and this is Asad Zaman. He's the head of the Muslim American Society, Muslim Brotherhood. He is allied with a Marxist churchy group named Isaiah. We know it's Marxist because they're posted, their dossier is on Horowitz's Discover the Networks. And so they're working together, this red-green axis again, and what they were doing was training delegates, training people to go to their caucuses to become delegates. They told them to bring 10 people with them, put their hand up, never put it down, become a delegate, so that we can create a huge voting block, so that we can get our people in to implement our agenda. And what is their agenda? But of course, open borders, combat any free speech that criticizes Islam, stand up to the federal government. Of course, they cannot stand President Trump. Secure affordable health care, which is a means to just simply tear down the capitalist system. Universal health care is roughly 18% of the national GDP, was the last thing I read. Demand religious freedom at work. Of course, they want prayer times, prayer space, foot baths, all that, which is a means to implement Sharia law. We're accommodating them all the time. Demand moral values as defined by Sharia law. Demand more money for education. And then this, I attended this CARE, Minnesota's 10th anniversary banquet, and it was here. So in addition to them infiltrating the caucus, they've not only captured our governor and kind of down, but now they're starting to focus on the grassroots, the caucuses. But not only that, they have allied with the SEIU. They were very proud to announce, I attended this, and they recognize that this is an unprecedented midterm that's coming up, because we not only have the governor up for re-election, but both U.S. Senate seats. So they were very proud to announce that up to $100 million is coming into Minnesota for the midterm. There is nothing that they would desire more than to make President Trump a lame duck and even impeach him, to put a stop to what he's trying to do to help save us. And then, let's see, just a couple more things. Karen, Isaiah, let's see, they are now hosting, and this is the wrong slide, that they are hosting Countering Islamophobia classes. I attended that also. And what they're doing is they're training, the white Christian, Marxist Christians, so to defend Islam, so that when they attend friends, family, and lake homes this summer in outstate Minnesota, that they're trained and know how to defend Islam even in outstate. So again, it's the grassroots. We the people are being targeted again. And then finally requested, let's see, SOS. So I did send out an SOS to DC. And this is still wrong, but I was invited to go to DC, and I was able to present to them my concerns about Minnesota and the upcoming election. We're already captured kind of sort of at the top, my humble perspective, and now they're working at the grassroots. They're increasingly naming people such as my friend Sally in Bloomington and any other grassroots activists, and demonizing them, branding them as Islamophobes and bigoted, racist, intolerant Islamophobes. So we really need to work hard on the upcoming midterm. We need to save our country. We need to save our country. And just on a closing note here is that I was privileged to be part of this team. This Red-Green Alliance is not only working within America and throughout the country, but it has captured, in essence, the international human rights forums also. So a team of us went to Warsaw, Poland. The past couple of years I've been there, and then we give 2-minute interventions to try to protect and preserve the efforts to criminalize any criticism of Islam on a global basis. This is so this is plenary hall, and then we give our 2-minute interventions here. This is former Senator, U.S. Senator John Andrews, and then Elizabeth Savage-Wolf, an Austrian freedom fighter. She is the daughter of a former Austrian ambassador, and she's in essence a team leader, along with Henrik Clausen from Denmark. And then of course this is a retired CIA 20-year vet, or operative, CIA operative, now retired, and she is vice president at the Center for Security Policy. Brilliant. And then Dr. Christopher Hall also works for the Center for Security Policy, and then another foot soldier as myself, Dave Petty's from Colorado. And I think we can probably end it there if you would like. As far as what can I do, I gave you a handout for that. This is an insurgency, it's not our daddy's war. It's going to be kind of sort of like guerrilla warfare. We have to meet these challenges up close and personal. And this is the book that has guided me. You have a DVD by John Guandolo, who donated those to you this evening. I encourage you to go to his website. And then when it comes to war, know the enemy, know thyself. You need not fear 100 battles. And so these are just a few ideas on what I can do, but they're on your form. And so, like Sun Tzu said, if you know who you are, who the enemy is, you need not fear 100 battles. So the question really is, do we know who we are anymore? We've been under such attack. All my life I've watched it. Who is the enemy? I hope this helps this evening. And then next, we need to decide, are we willing to fight? And thank you very much for your time. Thank you.